I never thought my life would unravel like this, but here I am, laying it all bare. My name's Lauren, I'm 32 years old, and I know what you're probably thinking. How could I just walk away from my husband right before Christmas? Trust me, I've asked myself that question more times than I can count, but not for the reasons you might assume. Ethan, my husband, is 36. We've been married for 8 years and have 2 beautiful kids. Logan, 6, and little Mia, just turned 4. For years, Ethan was the dependable one, the planner, the guy who saved every penny. Me? I like to think I'm the spark, the fun one who keeps things light and spontaneous. Maybe that's why, for a while, we worked. But lately, things changed. Every day, Ethan came home carrying the world on his shoulders. He'd drop his work bag by the door, sigh like he was crushed beneath some invisible weight. He'd try telling me about his day, but honestly, I was half distracted, scrolling on my phone or flipping through Netflix. It sounds terrible, but his stories were always the same. Endless meetings, deadlines, his boss acting like a tyrant. Who wants to hear that on repeat? Then, 2 weeks ago, everything shifted. It was a Friday night, and I was snuggled up on the couch watching a holiday rom-com when Ethan walked in looking like death itself. Pale, stunned, frozen. My heart sank. I thought maybe he'd been hurt. Then he said it, quiet and defeated, I lost my job. At first, I laughed. Not because it was funny but because I thought he was joking. Ethan, the guy who always bragged about job security and being indispensable, suddenly unemployed? It felt surreal. I even made a dumb joke about him finally having time to hang Christmas lights. That was my biggest mistake. He didn't laugh. He just stared at me like I'd said the cruelest thing in the world. I didn't realize how deep this cut yet. Who loses their job right before Christmas? It sounded insane. He sat down and explained how the company had been downsizing for months, how he'd seen the signs but hoped he'd be spared. He was blindsided. And instead of holding him close, I got defensive. I told him maybe if he had paid attention instead of just complaining, we could have prepared. The words flew out before I could stop them. He looked at me like I'd punched him in the gut. Do you even hear yourself? He asked. Do you have any idea what this means for us? For the kids? For Christmas? And there I was, shrugging, saying, we'll figure it out. We always do. That was the last straw. He started rattling off every bill, every dollar left in savings. Something I hadn't even known was so low. And how my casual attitude wouldn't cut it this time. He practically yelled. I sat there, arms crossed, waiting for him to finish. I hated how he spoke to me. Yes, it was bad, but it wasn't my fault. I thought he was overreacting. We had a roof, healthy kids. Why was he acting like everything was falling apart? Then he said something that hit me like a hammer. Lauren, you don't take anything seriously. You think life is a game. But it's not. I can't carry this family alone anymore. That stung. Not because it wasn't true, but because it was the first time he'd said it out loud. A part of me already knew it, but admitting it would mean admitting I was wrong. And I wasn't ready. So instead, I said the worst thing possible. I looked him in the eye and told him, maybe if you were better at your job, we wouldn't be in this mess. The moment those words left my mouth, I knew I crossed a line. Ethan stared, his face twisted with hurt and anger. He didn't say a word. Just grabbed his coat and walked out. I sat there replaying the moment over and over, convincing myself I wasn't the villain. But deep down, I knew I was cold. Still, when he came back, I didn't apologize. I acted like nothing happened, pretending everything was fine. That's who I am. Bear the pain and move on. I won't lie. I felt guilty. I'm not heartless. But admitting I was wrong? That's never been my strength. I hoped time would heal the wound if I just gave him space. So when Ethan returned, I was busy in the kitchen, making dinner, trying extra hard to be sweet. Hey babe, I made your favorite, I said, hoping my normal act would fix everything. But Ethan wasn't in the mood. He sat at the table, arms crossed, silent. Not scrolling, not on his phone. Just quiet. You ever seen a man so quiet it feels like a scream? That was him. His silence made me feel small, like a child waiting for a scolding. I hated it. I convinced myself he was just being dramatic. Yes, he lost his job, but life didn't stop. We'd get through this, just like always. But there was something about the way he sat, crushed and defeated, that made me realize I had to do more. Not apologize. No way. But show I still cared. Actions speak louder than words, right? Then it hit me. For months, Ethan had been dreaming about this watch. A fancy, overpriced stainless steel thing with a blue face he kept drooling over online. I'd caught him watching reviews like a kid eyeing a toy catalog. I knew that watch could bring a smile back to his face. The problem was, we didn't have the money. Savings were almost gone. Ethan had said the card was off limits. And with no paycheck coming in, how could I buy it? But I had a secret weapon. Our credit card. Ethan rarely used it except for emergencies. I'd swiped it a few times. Or maybe a dozen times. I told myself it made sense. That watch wasn't just a gift. It was an investment in our marriage. If he smiled, maybe he'd forget the fight, the job, everything. That's how men worked, right? You buy them something nice and suddenly you're the best wife in the world. So I bought it. $749.99 plus tax and shipping. My heart sank seeing that total, but I told myself it was worth it. I skipped the buy now pay later option. I'd put it on the card and deal with it later. Ethan wouldn't even know. Not even an hour later, I heard him from the living room. Lauren, what the hell is this? My heart dropped. I knew what he was holding. His phone, screen glaring with the purchase confirmation, $749.99. You're kidding me, he said, voice low but tight, like a volcano ready to explode. I told you to watch spending. And you go out and buy this, he squinted at the screen. A watch? Lauren, I could have apologized, said I was trying to do something nice. But no. Panic hit, and defense kicked in full force. Don't act like you don't know what that is, I said, crossing my arms. You've been talking about that watch for months. I was trying to do something nice for you, he laughed. But not the kind that's funny. It was the kind that means he was about to lose his mind. Spending $750 we don't have? I lost my job, Lauren. And your response is to rack up more debt. My voice grew louder. You wanted that watch? Don't pretend I bought it for me. I did it for you, for me. He pointed at himself like it was ridiculous. So if I check the closet, am I going to find shoes, clothes, maybe a few Target hauls that hit a nerve? Don't you dare, I warned, pointing right back. Don't stand there like Mr. Perfect. You're mad because I did something you couldn't control. This is about control. He stepped closer, eyes locked on mine. You think I want control? You think I like being the only one worrying about this house every month? I'm checking bank statements like they're crime scenes trying to find where the money went. Now I know where. It's right here, I snapped back, voice cracking. Don't make me the villain, Ethan. I was trying to give you something to make you feel better. To make Christmas normal for once. He shook his head slowly. You didn't do this for me. You did it for you. So you wouldn't feel guilty. You thought a watch would make me forget everything else. He shoved his phone in his pocket and walked toward the door. Where are you going? Panic rose in my chest. Somewhere that isn't here, he muttered, grabbing his keys. Seriously? You're just going to walk out? What about the kids? He stopped at the door, hand on the knob, didn't turn around. Don't worry. You've got it all figured out, and just like that, he was gone. I stood there staring at the door, hoping it would swing back open. It didn't. I glanced at the Christmas tree, lights twinkling like nothing was wrong. My throat tightened. For a moment, I thought about texting him, saying I was sorry. But then I heard my own voice in my head. Don't make me the villain, Ethan. I went back to the kitchen, grabbed my phone, opened the bank app, and stared at the balance. I scrolled through every charge. Target, Sephora, Amazon. It wasn't pretty. I could have apologized. I could have done a million things. But instead, I convinced myself it wasn't that bad. It wasn't like I spent thousands. It wasn't like I was the only one making mistakes. I closed the app and went back to scrolling Instagram. I told myself I'd deal with it later. I don't know exactly when it hit me, but when it did, it hit hard. Ethan didn't come home that night. I figured he needed to blow off steam. Guys do that, right? Storm off, drive around, complain to friends, calm down. I didn't text him. I wasn't about to chase him like some desperate wife. But the next morning, waking up to an empty side of the bed. No good morning, no coffee brewing, no texts or calls. That's when the weight of it all sank in. My chest tightened, but I brushed it off. The kids needed breakfast. Laundry had to be done. I told the kids Daddy had to help Uncle Mike so they wouldn't ask questions. I wasn't about to explain that their dad left because I bought a watch. While making breakfast, a small but huge thing happened. I checked the pantry. Half a box of cereal. The last box. No backup stash. The fridge? Milk low. Eggs barely left. Lunch meat gone. Freezer? A couple frozen dinners, some old waffles, one bag of chicken nuggets. Normally, I'd just hop in the car and fill the fridge. But this time, I froze. Ethan always checks the bank account. After the watch incident, I knew better than to swipe the card again. My stomach twisted. For the first time, I really thought about the price of groceries. Actually thought about it. I sat at the kitchen table, phone in hand, scrolling store apps. Prices skyrocket. $5.49 for milk. $6.99 for eggs. $3.89 for cereal. It was like seeing prices for the first time. That's when it hit me. This is what breaks people. Budgeting, counting, planning. Walking into a store with a list and putting things back because it costs too much. I never lived like that. Growing up, my parents weren't rich, but we always had what we needed. My mom never stood in the aisle comparing peanut butter prices. If we wanted it, we got it. This wasn't supposed to be my life. I married Ethan because he was supposed to provide. He wasn't rich but had a steady job with benefits. He was supposed to be the rock. The one who made sure we were fine. I was supposed to be able to breathe in this marriage, not panic every time I opened the fridge. I sat there, hands over my face, breathing shallow. My eyes burned but I refused to cry. I told myself I wasn't going to fall apart. But the thoughts came. Dangerous ones. What if he can't find another job? How long will it take? What if it's worse than before? What if we have to sell everything? Downsize? That last one hurt the most. I looked around the house. The couch, TV, the pictures on the wall. And imagined packing it all up. Moving to a cramped apartment, living paycheck to paycheck. I hated the thought. I hated myself for even thinking it. But I started wondering if I made a mistake marrying Ethan. What's the point of being with someone who can't provide? Isn't that the whole point? To feel safe. If he can't do that, then what are we even doing? I tried to push those thoughts away, but they lingered. I thought about them while wiping counters, picking up toys, every time the phone lit up with another bill. I scrolled Instagram and saw a friend posting about her Cancun vacation. Bikini, drinks, no worries. That should be me. I should be booking spas, buying clothes without checking prices. That's what I dreamed of when I married, not counting boxes of cereal. Later that night, Ethan came home. Tired, beaten down. Kids asleep. He rubbed his eyes and asked softly, "Anything new?" I said quietly, "No." We sat, not talking. I glanced at him and saw a man older than his years. Not gray or wrinkled but worn down by life. It made me feel something. Guilt, maybe pity, maybe regret. I'm still working through it. He told me he'd been calling places, applying, that something would come through. I didn't say a word. I didn't believe him. People say that when they're trying to convince themselves, not you. I wondered how long I was supposed to wait. A month? 6? A year? I knew I couldn't live like this that long. My kids deserved better. So did I. But I didn't say any of that. Instead, I pulled out my phone and started looking at apartments. Not because I was planning anything, just looking. Days later, the tension was thick. You can't pretend everything's fine when you're one missed paycheck from disaster. That morning, Ethan was on the phone all morning, quietly begging for a job. "I can start next week." "No, that won't work." "Yes, I'll take anything." It was pathetic. It made me feel worse. I'd always thought I'd marry a man who could take care of me, who made sure I never had to worry. Now, I was the one worrying about him. Then something strange happened. Upstairs, I heard the softest sniffle. I froze. Ethan was crying. The strong, tough man I married, crying quietly in our bedroom. I hesitated but walked slowly to the door and peeked in. There he was, head in hands, shoulders shaking, trying not to make a sound. A sharp pain hit my chest, but was drowned by the voice inside telling me not to feel sorry. This wasn't my problem. He lost his job. He made bad choices. Not me. I stood there watching him cry, voice breaking as he whispered, "I don't know what I'm going to do. How I'll make this work. I promised I'd take care of us, and now I can't." My chest tightened. I should have walked in, held him, comforted him. He was my husband. But I didn't. I just stood there. A ghost in my own home. My mind raced. What was I even doing? The man I married was broken, and I couldn't fix it. If I'm honest, I didn't want to. I was angry, resentful that we were in this mess. Mad that he was the one crying while I faced the reality of being broke. I backed away quietly, heart pounding, and went downstairs to scroll real estate listings. I didn't even realize I left my husband crying upstairs. I told myself it wasn't my job to pick up the pieces anymore. Not my responsibility to save him. He was the one who couldn't figure it out. And for the first time, the thought of being single sounded better. I never imagined I'd think that. Ethan had been good to me, but now he was someone who couldn't provide. I needed a man who could take care of me, who could give me a future. I wasn't ready to settle for broken. I closed my eyes and imagined someone new. Successful, confident, with his life together. Someone who didn't cry over losing a job. A high-value man who understood me. I looked at my phone again, but this time, I wasn't looking at apartments. I was scrolling through dating profiles. Men in suits, fancy cars. Imagining a life with a man who had his stuff together. Then I heard Ethan come downstairs, heavy footsteps, no words. He plopped on the couch, that same tired look. I didn't look at him. I didn't know how to pretend anymore. The thought stayed. What if I left? What would my life be like without him? I swiped through pictures of men who had it all, but deep down, I heard Ethan's sobs echo. I couldn't fix this anymore. I wasn't the broken one. He was. That's how it started to end. Weeks went by. The house felt colder than December weather. The silence between us was deafening. No more talks like before. Money, bills, what we didn't have. That was all. I tried to keep my spirits up, but it felt forced. The kids asked what they'd get for Christmas. I smiled through gritted teeth and said Santa was working on it. I couldn't tell them Santa didn't have the funds. I was too young to live like I was 50, worrying about bills and scraping by. I started quietly planning my escape. Little thoughts at first. Could I leave? Would I be better off? It seemed crazy at first, but then it made sense. Ethan wasn't man enough. Not ready. A real man wouldn't let his family fall this far. Wouldn't cry on the edge of the bed. I scrolled at night, watching videos of women who left struggling men and found better,